welcome to this month's live experience. Appreciate you joining us. Some of you always are present for these. For others of you, this is your very first time. And so I want to give you a special welcome. And our regulars know that you get a couple of free gifts at the end. And so I'll give you all the details of that towards the end. So be sure and stay tuned. If you are watching this recording, thanks for the gift of your time and your attention. I appreciate that a lot. Our free gifts are mainly for those persons who join us live, but you may be able to get a free gift as well at the end. So be sure and stay with us. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Always one of the special times in the year for me, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Today, in this live experience, we're going to examine the challenge of creating a mentally healthy work culture. A mentally healthy work culture. And our prime resource today is my latest bestseller, which, yes, we're very, very grateful to be #1 in our Amazon categories again today. And that latest bestseller is named Thrive, THRIVE, at Work, Mental Health, Culture, and the People You Lead. The reason this month is always very, very special for me is because I have been influenced and made sensitive to and aware of mental health concerns and challenges all my life. It got rather personal for me when my first cousin was born and had, shall we say, severe mental health challenges. There were also physical challenges as well. So I grew up watching Angela at about a third grade. Well, actually about a 3 or 4 year old level. And so that sensitized me to the fact that some of us have mental health challenges. Later that I served as the president of our Junior Mental Health Association when I was in high school. And then I continued for a time as a counselor with a career in counseling. And so I became aware of the need to refer people who had mental health challenges to professionals like psychotherapists and psychologists and even psychiatrists. So throughout my 40 plus year career, I've been aware of the long tail, if you will, that mental health has. I'm very grateful that we as people leaders today get to talk about mental health challenges and see the work culture, particularly a positive work culture, as an opportunity to be able to help persons to become best versions of themselves in spite, despite, and sometimes because of mental health challenges. And yet there's still this stigma somewhat around mental health, and it's just a part and parcel of who we are. In fact, here's some truth. This is current reality that most people leaders dance around at work. I say most because there are those who face it head on, but most people leaders really do dance around it. And some of that truth is that 1 in 5 adults on your team deal with a mental health condition. That's 20%. 1 in 3 of the people you lead face an anxiety disorder. That number is continuing to increase, and we're seeing higher numbers among Gen Z. 1 in 2 of the people that you lead take an anti-anxiety or an antidepressant medication at some point in their lives. And we saw mental health prescriptions for those types of chemicals jump 30% during the COVID pandemic. And those numbers, frankly, have yet to come back down. These are your people. These are the people you lead at work. These are the people who look to you to provide clarity in the midst of chaos, to help them find purpose in the predicaments and meaning in the mayhem. Now, in the United Kingdom specifically, and one of my guests today comes from the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom specifically, the Health and Safety Executive calculated that work-related stress, anxiety, and depression cause 54% of all lost work time, all absenteeism, 54%. That's over half, more than half. In fact, Tom Oxley is founder of Bamboo Mental Health. He's one of the 8 extraordinary mental health experts that I interviewed on the Work Positive podcast that inform our time together today. Tom frames it this way. around that 54%. If you ran a factory and someone told you 54% of your machine downtime traced back to a single source, what would you do? You'd stop the machines, you'd do a root cause analysis, you'd fix it before you switch them back on, right? Your people deserve that same urgent attention. In fact, the purpose of this live experience is for you to transform your work culture to give your people that same urgent attention so that everyone that you lead thrives. Now, for years, decades even, we've been told that mental health belongs in the human resources department or the human capital department. Send people to the EAP. Maybe some of you have added a meditation app to the benefits package. Maybe you posted a crisis hotline poster in your break room. Do those things and culture takes care of itself. Now, those are important things. But how's that working out for you in terms of creating a mentally healthy culture where people thrive? The soil of culture is depleted and people are bending until they break these days. There is a better way, and that's the good news. We're here to share that with you today. Out of my 40 plus years of coaching executives, transforming, architecting culture transformations, and interviewing hundreds of leaders on the Work Positive podcast, the organizations, here's what I've discovered, the organizations that grow people and profits today do so in that order: people and profits. They start with people and then the profits pour in as the people prosper. So take heart. There is some hope for creating a mentally healthy culture. I know those numbers are staggering and overwhelming. The solution that we're going to talk about today is not overly complicated. You don't need a psychology degree. You don't need a staff therapist necessarily. You don't need to do a massive overhaul. You yourself don't need to become a therapist. What you do need is a framework and the commitment on your part as a people leader to use it. So in this hour, we're going to discover together some insights from my 40 plus year career of experience and wisdom that I've been very blessed to accumulate, plus those 8 extraordinary mental health culture leaders. Today, you're going to hear from Laura Cheadle, Ann Grady, Mel Kettle, Dr. Bob Nelson, Tom Oxley, Dr. Marie-Helene Pelletier, Dr. Aaron Wilson, and Joel Zeff. Their research and stories are shaping the backbone of everything you discover in the next hour. Thrive is the acronym for the framework that we employ today to coach you to create a mentally healthy culture that grows people and profits. Here's what Thrive stands for. The T in Thrive is for trust. And I want you to think of trust as the psychological safety that you create in your culture. And that's the foundation on which we build a mentally healthy, work positive culture. The H is for honor. That's recognition that lands best. And we're very, very fortunate today to call in Dr. Bob Nelson, who has influenced people around recognition forever and just does an amazing job. The R in Thrive is for rest. I know you're a leader, therefore you get tapped out, but you keep going. Today, we want to position rest as your leadership superpower. That's right, rest as your leadership superpower. Not just sleep, but rest, and we'll differentiate between those. The I in Thrive is for invest. We want you to implement your resilience plan today to help create that mentally healthy, work positive culture. The V in Thrive is for value, clarity, boundaries. Man, I want to stamp out burnout today. So we're going to talk about that. The E in Thrive is for engage, a culture where Monday is just as good as Friday, in some ways, maybe better. So let's talk first about that T in Thrive, which is for trust. Psychological safety is your foundation. Think of your culture as a building. Without that foundation, the prettiest blueprint just collapses. In other words, the most thoughtful HR program won't hold weight on cracked ground. So trust is your foundation. Psychological safety is what holds that foundation stable. Tom Oxley told me on his Work Positive podcast episode about Nick. So let's listen to Tom tell Nick's story. And I want you to see yourself in this story you've had a Nick somewhere along the way. So here's Tom telling us Nick's story about how trust is that psychological safety foundation. Let's listen to Tom.
I have a friend called Nick, and he was working for a global financial services company. He'd smashed his review. He'd done, he'd exceeded expectations in his review the past 4 out of 5 years. He was a famously nice guy, and his mum died. Okay, so it's a big boulder in his backpack, and one that we'll all face from time to time. And
We do.
his manager refused his requests for flexible working while his grief was, turning into depression.
Oh my.
And it upset Nick a lot. He was in and out of work a lot. He couldn't function in the right way. He went to the doctors. He was signed off. It was just a complete mess. And he ended up leaving the organization with a payout because they treated him so poorly. So very clearly we can see that when we don't get this right, it can be costly from HR point of view, from management time point of view, and a human at the end of the day who
sensitive to Nick's story because right now mom is in hospice, and my father's about to go into hospice, so I can really relate to Nick's story. That's Nick's story. I love the way Tom described Nick as a famously nice guy. Now let's think about Sally, who's at a same kind of organization, but let's think about Sally, who's in a similar situation, and her father died. Her manager happened to be on maternity leave during a keeping in touch day. So she looked at Sally and simply said, "You're not right. What's going on? Let's have a cup of tea." And when her manager reached out to Sally in that way, she saw Sally completely different. Sally had the same grief. It was the same kind of organization, but the outcomes were totally different because Sally's manager, rather than refusing time off, granted that time off. Sally stayed at that organization for 9 more years. She wound up not needing as much extended leave as she would have because the difference was trust. It was a psychologically safe environment there in which Sally could talk to her manager about her grief. The difference was trust. My good friend Ann Grady is a resilience expert. She's a best-selling author, 2-time TEDx speaker. She's worked with organizations from Google to the Department of Defense, and she told me on her Work Positive podcast episode that psychological safety, the kind that Sally got and Nick did not, is way beyond a cultural nicety. In fact, it's basic biology. So let's listen to Ann talk about this basic biology of psychological safety and what uncertainty does to you. Let's listen to Ann.
Well, I think part of it is just rapid change. The greatest threat of all to the human brain is not taxes or death, it's uncertainty.
Yes.
So the human brain would rather know, hey, this is going to be another 5 years of crazy and then it'll be okay, than not knowing at all.
When your people don't know where they stand with you, that was Nick's challenge. When culture feels rather arbitrary, when vulnerability, like the kind that Nick shared, gets punished, then our people's brains are under this low-grade siege all day, every day. As if life weren't complicated enough, there are these incidents in which there's grief and loss and other unexpected things that can cause us to be less than our best versions of ourselves. In your culture, trust is the antidote to all that uncertainty. Psychological safety emerges from your vulnerability with the people that you lead. Just like Sally's manager asked that question, you're not at your best, what's going on? Frankly, a slogan on the lobby wall is not going to create the kind of culture you want. Psychological safety emerges as you, the people leader, say things like, "I don't know, I got that wrong, I'm struggling because my mom passed as well." Your role as a people leader here in establishing trust and psychological safety as the foundation of a mentally healthy, work positive culture is to make it safe to not be okay. And you do that by going first. At any given time, remember, a significant portion of your team is not okay, and they're importing this heavy stuff, and work just can't get done at the best level. So the question is, does your culture help your people carry this heavy weight, or are you adding to their weight? You go first and name on those less than days that you're having, I'm less than today. So here's your trust do one thing, as we refer to it in our Work Positive Culture live experiences each month. Do one thing is our DOT challenge, do one thing. So this week, ask one person on your team, just ask one person, how are you really doing? A lot of times, how you doing, right? That almost becomes a greeting. What I'm talking about here is, how are you really doing? And just really showing an interest in someone. You're asking genuinely. There's not an agenda. You have a few moments to completely hear the answer rather than a drive-by, how you doing, or a walk-by. Listen, respond. It's not your job to fix anything. Just hear them out. That's how psychological safety grows, one conversation at a time. So I want you just to think about, on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, how stable is the trust foundation in your culture? And if you're comfortable, drop that number in the comments right there, whether you're on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube, wherever you are. Just drop that in the comments. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least, 10 being the most, how stable is the trust foundation in your culture right now? And just continue to carry that in front of you as you interact with people throughout, and as you seek to create a culture that thrives and allows people to work positive. So that's the T in Thrive. Trust is the foundation of a mentally healthy culture. The H in Thrive is for recognition that lands best. Recognition that lands best. The H in Thrive is for honoring that. Honor does one of two things. It either lands or it bounces. Here's an interesting statistic for me, and I trust it is for you too. 12% of employees say they receive meaningful recognition when they've done good work. 12%. 85% of employees surveyed feel overworked and underappreciated. Well, there's a gap. Want another gap? Here's the great disconnect. Remember, 12% feel that they receive meaningful recognition. Care to guess how many managers believe they recognize their people well? 80% of managers tell themselves, I recognize people well. That's nearly 70 points that are separating what leaders think they're doing well in recognizing their people and what their people are actually experiencing. 70% almost. That gap is costing you people and profits every single day. Dr. Bob Nelson has spent more than 3 decades in that nearly 70% gap. He's the world's leading authority on employee recognition. In fact, let me recommend his book to you. It's absolutely phenomenal. 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees. Just in case you like to list, 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees. It's been reprinted 64 times. He's worked with 80% of Fortune 500 companies. Dr. Bob knows a little something about meaningful recognition. So he told me on the Work Positive podcast that meaningful recognition is 3 things. It's specific, it's timely, and it's personal to the recipient rather than the giver. Let's listen to Dr. Bob describing meaningful recognition in his own words.
And to start being positive and start taking active time and behavior to acknowledge when people have done a good job. So I'm not talking about just flattery or, I'm saying it has to be real. It has to be sincere. It means you've got to be aware of what people are doing so you can catch them having done something right when it happens. So, to say something, to do something. You see something, do something. That's my message.
There it is.
In a positive way.
I love it. See something, do something. the proximity is necessary to see it, the timeliness in order to do it. Let me distinguish, and I've taught this as part of work positive culture for a couple of decades now. Let me distinguish between what I refer to as soap bubble comments and Velcro comments. Great job. Way to go, Joey. That's a soap bubble comment. It's beautiful while it lasts, but how long does it last? About 3 seconds, right? Velcro comments stick. And this is what Dr. Bob's talking about in terms of it's the meaningfulness, the specific, timely, and personal to the recipient rather than the giver. It's not about you at this point. What you want to do is focus on the giver and what's meaningful for the giver. And those 1,501 ways have that common denominator in his book. Why do I call it Velcro? Because Velcro is really a series of hundreds of tiny hooks. I mean, that's how it works. Each one grabbing the next to create a tight grip and a tighter grip and tighter grip. So your comment and the recipient's heart and mind are what you want to hook into. Here's a great example. I noticed the way you see someone in a situation, and so you say to them, here's the specificity and how meaningful it is, right? I noticed the way you de-escalated that client call yesterday when things got tense. You really remained calm, and that's beautiful. That took real skill, and it saved the relationship for the company. So I just want to thank you for using your superpower of calm right there. You hear that? Soap bubble or Velcro is your decision every single day. Now, I also hosted Joel Zeff on the Work Positive podcast. He spent more than 25 years studying this intersection around recognition, but it's recognition and it's fun and it's work culture. And how can we make our work culture fun and recognize people for doing a great job? Joel has a concept he calls the ta-da moment. If you can remember back when you were a child, everything was a ta-da. We've got a 6-year-old granddaughter, my wife, Gigi, and I have a 6-year-old granddaughter, and then we've got one who's 10 months old. Man, for the last 6 years, we've been ta-daing just about everything. I mean, think back to when you were a kid. You ate your sandwich, you made a clean plate, ta-da! You figured out a puzzle and turned that puzzle piece just right so it went down into the frame, ta-da! Man, I have learned all over again over the last few years what it's like to do potty training, right? So you use the toilet as an absolute exuberant, ta-da, right? That's a big one. We grow up and we ta-da less, but we need ta-das just as much, Joel says. So just think about the people on your team. They're solving complex problems, even more so than potty training, right? They're solving complex problems. What are they doing? They're navigating difficult clients like the situation I just mentioned. They're showing up on days when they're struggling mentally, and they're showing up on those days when it's hard. Man, people need some ta-da. So how do we deliver that ta-da? Joel has a recommendation he calls tip of the hat is the way we can express ta-da. So let's listen to Joel Zeff describe this tip of the hat and how it applies to meetings.
Tip of the hat, where they start each meeting and they have a timer and they go around and everybody, a tip of the hat, they get to say something positive about somebody in their team or their group. That's how they start every time they get together, whether it's a group of 5, 10, 100. They're like, we're going to start it out with tip of the hat. And it just starts their meeting with a positive moment. And here's my takeaway. When you go home from work every day, think about all the people that you had contact with, your team, clients, partners, vendors. Did you give the people that deserved it that appreciation, that positive support? Because, and you probably forgot because you got busy. I get it. That's why we're thinking about on the way home. So tomorrow, let's give that positive support.
I love it. I love it. Because what are we thinking about? The people, not just the goals and the strategies and tactics and how much we accomplish, but we're thinking about the people. And that's the key to this tip of the hat, creating these ta-da moments for folks. So let me encourage you. Here's your honor right? Do one thing, your dot challenge for this evening. As you go home or as you shut off your computer, if you're working from home, think about every person that you contact. How many words, Velcro comments, did you give them of appreciation? Think of someone that deserved it that didn't get it. Okay. Well, then you still have tomorrow, right? Today's just Wednesday in my part of the world. Maybe it's Thursday in yours, but give that Velcro compliment tomorrow. A text, an email, a call. The power of handwritten notes. I've written a whole blog about that. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Ask yourself this question: how do I help the people around me be successful? How do I help the people around me be successful? Just name that way that you can do that and put that into play. In fact, in the comments right now, just drop in there 1 to 10 how well you do helping the people around you be successful. How well do you do helping the people around you be successful through tip of the hat or ta-da, or just honoring them as a part of a mentally healthy, work positive culture? 1 being the least, 10 being the most. Just put that number in there. And as you're comfortable, be transparent, right? And I appreciate you doing that. How do I help the people around me be successful? That's the H in Thrive. So the T is for trust. Psychological safety is a foundation. H is for honoring by recognizing the people. The R is for rest. And this is your leadership superpower. The R in Thrive is for rest. When did you last rest? I'm not talking about sleep. Sure, you slept last night, right? You got at least a few hours. I was up early this morning doing a client coaching call with the leadership team from one of my favorite clients. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but they're one of my favorite clients. And man, one of them said, I said, how'd you rest last night? And he said, I didn't rest much, but I did manage to sleep for a few hours. I think it was like 3 hours, 3.5 hours, something like that. That's different. We're going to assume you get 7 good hours of sleep a night, but rest. Rest is more than just a reward for exceptional performance. It's almost like, and if we as people leaders carry this mental mindset about rest, we convey that to our people through our culture. It's almost like we regard rest as a reward for exceptional performance. It's the prize we collect after grinding through another quarter. It's like, okay, I checked off everything on my to-do list today. Now I get to rest. That day is never going to come when you check everything off your to-do list if you're conscientious. Rest is what you do, not as a reward, but to exercise your superpower. I was very, very blessed to interview Dr. Erin Wilson on the Work Positive podcast. She's the co-founder of listen to this now, the Strategic Rest Summit. She wrote a book called Strategic Rest in Leadership. She co-authored that. I highly recommend it to you. Erin grew to this appreciation for rest as a leadership superpower out of her own story, because early in her career, she was fully committed to what I call the hustle culture, right? First in, last out, always say yes, never slowed down. She hustled herself right into a stress-induced seizure. In fact, she told me on her Work Positive podcast episode that she had to stop and think, am I still valuable when I'm not showing up as this version of me that always has it together and always says yes to everything? And that is the mental model we carry of ourselves and what we have to do to be successful in many, many cultures today. She discovered an answer and now teaches her answer yes to that question. You are valuable, and your team individually and corporately is valuable just because they are, not just based on what they do. So rest is not a reward you give yourself for superior performance. It's what you deserve just because you are So rest is not the enemy of your value. In fact, Aaron says rest is the source of your value. Let's listen to Dr. Erin Wilson describe it and leadership exhaustion as she sees today. Let's listen to her in her own words describe it.
I like to remind leaders when I'm working with them that you just can't build a positive culture on leadership exhaustion. And literally people's entire cultures are being toppled over because they're built on the stones of leadership exhaustion.
Yeah, but they aren't stones. Those are cards, and it's
those are cards. I love that.
Dramatically, and
yes.
So Erin shared with the Work Positive Community in her podcast and writes about it in her book, the NAP framework, NAP, 3 principles that really help you access renewal across every dimension of your life, but especially as you as a people leader are creating a work positive, mentally healthy culture. The N in NAP is for nurture. Nurture communities around you, the people who value you as a whole human rather than just as a producer. Learning and development enter into this as well. So what kind of culture are you creating that nurtures the people around you as whole humans rather than as human beings as opposed to just human doings? In fact, Erin found that getting into learning and development, into activities that could become hobbies, was instrumental in helping her recover from the hustle culture. She told me the story about showing up to a DJ class. Ever wanted to be a DJ before, right? A DJ class. She was so exhausted from working, and it was a Friday afternoon. But after going through that class, learning how to be a DJ, she left completely invigorated. So learning something new, that's really a potent form of rest that the brain knows it needs. So try learning something new as a way of nurturing yourself and nurturing your team. The A in NAP is for assess. Go read Dr. Erin's book. There's 7 types of rest. Most of us are depleted in at least, she says, 3 of them. So one of the keys to your kingdom of creating a mentally healthy, thriving culture is to identify the type of rest that you need most right now. Name it, raise your awareness of it, and lead your team through an understanding of these 7 types of rest and what they need most and how you can partner with them to make sure that they're getting it. So it's nurture, it's assess, and then the P in NAP is for prioritize. What you just simply must, in order for rest to be your leadership superpower, prioritize what restores you and provides you rest. And this is quite personal. For instance, for me, it's trail riding on a horse with my wife across several hundred acres of Virginia farmland around our little farm. It's fishing in a pond with my granddaughter, all sorts of other things. You get the point. It's very personal. For you, it might be cooking or music or reading or vegetable garden. The point is prioritize these identified restful activities for you on a consistent, ongoing basis, because you as a people leader tap out really quickly. You know this intuitively, but I'm just naming it out loud for you. Renewal is important for leaders. And it could be a small something as an expression of your NAP, a way of just moving something around, a chess piece on your board. Erin told the story about coaching a client who took an incredibly, what sounded like small step, but he changed the default length of his meetings from 60 minutes to 50 minutes, only 10 minutes. These were all kinds of meetings, Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, in-person meetings. What happened was he discovered that he arrived at those meetings because he had 10 more minutes rather than going back to back to back. He arrived prepared rather than frantic. He had 10 minutes to process that previous conversation before he jumped into the next one. He was present. He was better. He was more in the moment. Within just a few weeks, his team noticed his better mood, his greater engagement, more genuine presence, and they became so inspired that they started instituting that 10-minute gap as well. I'm convinced that small hinges swing big doors. So 10 minutes may sound incremental to you, but that 10 minutes of rest between meetings created a better version of himself and therefore a mentally healthy culture. And he is a leader influenced others to do the same. So let me give you your rest, do one thing challenge. I want it to be those 10 minutes for you. Take 10 minutes that belong only to you. 10 minutes away from email, from meetings, from messages, from your phone. 10 minutes just to sit and ideate, or just sit and think. Just sit and be, and watch how much that genuinely restores you. Your energy, your team's energy is going to rise over the next few weeks. You don't owe anybody an explanation for this. Just model it and make it a point to take those 10 minutes. Okay. Do that for yourself. So the T is for trust. That is the psychological foundation of a mentally healthy, work positive culture in which you and your people thrive. The H is for honor. We are honoring people with recognition that lands best for them. The R is for rest, which is your leadership superpower. Now let's move on to the I in thrive, which is for invest. We want you to implement a resilience plan here. What happens so often, and you convey this to your team, you catch yourself thinking from time to time, I sure hope blank gets better soon. Hope, my friends, well, it's just not much of a strategy. Dr. Marie-Helene Pelletier was my guest on the Work Positive podcast, and she offered a bit of wisdom that's worth writing down. She said, hope is not a strategy. Hoping something's going to get better is just not a strategy. I mean, you hope your team is resilient. You hope people manage their stress better. You hope your culture elevates rather than depletes the people that you depend on. But that's not a plan. That's not a strategy. It's just not working. Resilience, on the other hand, is a capacity that you deliberately and systematically want to invest in. And in fact, Dr. MH, as she prefers to be called, identified 4 behavioral pillars, if you want to jot these down quickly, that account for the vast majority of resilience, and what she likes to refer to as your resilience buffer. That is your capacity to absorb stress without breaking or being broken by it. So here's what she encourages you and me to invest in. The first is exercise. Okay. You want to exercise. The second is nutrition. What you put in your mouth matters. The third is sleep. And we talked about that a moment ago, right? Different from rest. And then the fourth, and please give this the priority it deserves, time in valued relationships. Time in valued relationships. Now, you already know about these. These are common. You can pick up a copy of Psychology Today and read about these. The challenge is not the knowledge. It's the consistent implementation in the context of your actual work life and in your culture. The competing demands, the shifting seasons around you that want to move you away from prioritizing these investments. Most people leaders, certainly the ones that I coach and work with as clients, overestimate their supply of energy and dramatically underestimate the demands that are coming at them every day. I mean, if you just press a leader like yourself, like if you and I were having a one-to-one conversation, I ask you to share some of your stressors, the actual picture begins to emerge, and it sounds daunting. I mean, think about it. A colleague's on leave, so you absorbed her workload. A promotion came through that's exciting, yet it's complex because maybe you haven't gotten the kind of people leadership training that you really need in order to lead this team well. And that's why you're watching this live experience today. Or maybe, and man, this is my life right now, a parent is aging. Both my parents are aging, both on hospice. Their health is declining rapidly. I mean, this is real life. Every one of these drains your energy, even the promotion, which is positive, right? Now, Dr. MH says you want to go granular with your team. Don't ask what's too much work, because that's commonly, it's just too much at work and these other things are draining your energy, so you can't quite get to them. What you want to help them understand is let's talk about what specific part of your work creates the most pressure and drains you the most. Let's hear Dr. MH describe going granular in her own words from the Work Positive podcast.
Is to sit with the team and ask team members to identify one part of their work that creates even more pressure from a workload perspective. Just one part, not a big level. Oh my God, I have too much to do. Not that. We want specific. We're going granular because we actually know from research that this is where the gold is. This is where we will find the nuggets, the short pieces, the part of a process that no one does often, but when we do, it's stressful because we're not used to it. And maybe all we need is a more detailed list of things to cover in this area.
What Dr. MH is saying is, I have too much work. That may be the feeling, and yet there's very little actionable in that. So here are a couple of questions you as a people leader want to ask that's going to surface the real gold in this situation. So go granular. What's the specific process step that cost you the most energy? What's the specific process step that cost you the most energy? Second question is, what's the task that would take, say, 30 minutes with a better checklist, but is currently taking, say, 2 hours because no one has created that checklist yet? So you hear what we're after there? One specific process identified and improved releases that significant pressure for that person on your team who's saying there's just too much work. So you went granular. In fact, Dr. MH suggested in that episode to put resilience on the meeting agenda as a regular topic. Just take 15 minutes, say once a month, but every month, rather than as a crisis response or a one-time training. If you put that word resilience on the agenda and you just ask those 2 questions, then that becomes a priority and it gets protected. So your do one thing challenge this week, sit with your team and ask each person to share one part of their work. Remember, we're going granular, just one, that's creating outsized pressure. You're not trying to solve everything. You're just trying to find that specific nugget and help them give attention to that one thing. Now, remember, those 4 pillars are getting neglected. The exercise, the nutrition, the sleep, the time, and valued relationship are getting devalued because there's too much work, and yet we're attacking that too much work to go granular to get that golden nugget, surface that, and then treat that so that a 2-hour task becomes a 30-minute task because of the improved checklist or something like that. So if you want to drop a comment there about which of those 4 pillars you may be devaluing the most, let's put a 1 for exercise, a 2 for nutrition, a 3 for sleep, or a 4 time and valued relationships. 1 exercise, 2 nutrition, 3 sleep, time and valued relationships is number 4. Which of those 4 pillars are getting devalued for you the most right now, right? Just drop those in the comments and we'll give you that opportunity to work on those going granular questions with your team. So we've got THRI. The V in Thrive is for value. What you value gets your time, energy, and attention. And those 3 pieces, time, energy, and attention, are what shape your culture and determine whether or not it's mentally healthy. So what does your culture actually value? My Work Positive podcast guest, Laura Cheadle, was a corporate attorney who absolutely loved her work, and then life happened. And for Laura, it was 2 boys born 22 months apart, which frankly I couldn't imagine, but that was her life. The company she worked for as a corporate attorney merged. 3 out of 4 of her grandparents, all of whom she loved dearly, went into hospice care simultaneously. And then, as if all that weren't enough, her husband took a job out of state. So here Laura was, for all practical intents and purposes, a single parent still practicing law. So she felt the need to go part-time, which was great, except somebody neglected to inform the on-demand culture in the merged company. So she literally burned out. She walked away from law And since then, Laura's become one of the most insightful, I think, one of the most insightful voices on burnout recovery. So she's a coach, she's a TEDx speaker, she's author of a book I highly recommend to you. It's not burnout, it's betrayal. And she developed this framework that really reaches the roots of burnout rather than treating only the surface level symptoms. Here's what Laura told me about burnout on her episode of the Work Positive podcast.
Yes. As a lawyer, I always have to start with definitions.
Sure.
The definition of burnout is stress that has been unsuccessfully managed. The definition of betrayal is the breaking of an expectation that you have relied on that ruptures your view of yourself, the world, or your career. So often we can manage stress. We've had stress our whole life. It's not that it's just burnout, it's betrayal. I am supposed to be able to manage this. I am supposed to be able to work from home. I am supposed to, and we get all in our heads, just like you said, about what I should have expected, what I should have received, how the world should be.
Should.
Yes. And then we go down that rabbit hole and then we feel betrayed.
Wow. If I could give you a gift of eradicating the word should from your vocabulary as a people leader, that's a gift I would hand to you right now. Also, I had Mel Kettle on the Work Positive podcast. She is a leadership communication strategist, and she wrote a really nice book, Fully Connected. Mel burned out about 25 years ago. A doctor warned her that she was on a track for a stroke by age 30. She quit her job. She ended a toxic relationship, moved 1,000 kilometers, and she rebuilt her life around practices that she now teaches. So how do you recognize burnout? Because it creeps and then it leaps. How do you recognize burnout is one of the key questions for us as people leaders in creating a mentally healthy culture. Mel described the warning signs of burnout, and she did it in a marvelous way in 3 escalating stages. Mel talks about feathers, bricks, and trucks. So let's listen to Mel talk about the escalating stages of burnout so that we can recognize them. Here she is from the Work Positive podcast.
It was because I was completely burned out, and it took me a long time to recover from that. And the reason that I allowed myself to get to that state is because I really wasn't listening to the warning signs that I was getting. And, you know, I talk a lot about our warning signs appearing as feathers, bricks, and trucks. And the feathers that we have as warning signs are those little ticklish, niggling things that appear, and we brush them off because they're not serious. For me, some of my feathers were I was drinking a lot more coffee. My alcohol consumption significantly escalated. My hours at work significantly increased. I was sleeping very poorly. I was really anxious. One of the turning points for me was when I went to the doctor about something random. And then he took my blood pressure and said, I don't know how you're walking around. I've never seen blood pressure this high in someone your age. And if you don't make some major life changes, you're right on the track of having a stroke by the time you turn 30. And my 30th birthday was about 3 months away. And so I just thought, well, I don't want that. And that was the brick. And I'm really grateful I didn't have the truck, because the truck would have been the stroke.
Wow. Well, that's awfully young to be approaching a stroke, right? And yet it happens every day. And these are the people that you lead as a people leader. Creating a mentally healthy work culture, I think, requires, I know I've seen it happen, that we value certain items. So for your value, do one thing challenge, I want to encourage you to do something that's a great antidote to burnout and betrayal, and values the things which feed you and therefore will feed your team because you're a people leader. Look intentionally for 5 things that you like, or if you want to make them 3 things. Marty Seligman talked about 3 good things as a part of learned optimism. So Find 3, find 5 things that you like, something you appreciate, something that makes you laugh. You know, I am my own best source material, so I laugh at myself a lot these days. The brain, and I won't geek out on neuroscience, but the brain is biologically wired for negativity. It's a default because you're looking for threats in your environment. What you're doing then is exercising your gift of neuroplasticity and rewiring your brain to look for good things. So if you want to start with 3, that's great. If you want to go to 5, that's great too. And just use Mel's escalation scale there, feathers, bricks, or trucks, to help you be aware of your own journey with stress and burnout and what you value and how you can provide an antidote to that. But also use feather, bricks, and trucks to just look at your team differently. Is Joey in a feather, brick, or truck stage would be a great way of thinking about that, and helping create this culture, this work positive culture, in which people receive good mental health and they're thriving. So the T is for trust, and the H is for honor, with recognition that lands best. The R is for rest. That's your leadership superpower. Remember, the I is for investing in those places within ourselves and within our team that are really important. The V is for value. Let's get to the E. It's engage. You know this statistic because you heard it over and over and over. Sherm, I think, was the original perpetrator or provocateur of us making this common knowledge that 57% of people leave a job because of a bad boss. It's not the work, it's not the commute, not even the pay. It's the person they report to. And oh, by the way, look in the mirror moment. That's you, the people leader. So Joel Zeff told me on his Work Positive podcast episode, when we were talking about engagement, he gave me this simple, yet I would consider it a profound solution. Our teams really want positive support and they want opportunity. And when you put those two things together, the positive support and the opportunity, it's amazing what people can accomplish. Now, Joel is a comedian by trade. He comes from the world of improvisational comedy. So this foundational principle within improv is one which provides the support and the opportunity perfectly. And it works so well in creating a positive work culture. And it's the phrase, yes, and. Yes, and. So let's listen to Joel talk about yes, and positive support plus opportunity from the Work Positive podcast. Here's Joel Zeff.
When I first started speaking, I really talked about that concept, yes, and. But I found that it didn't sometimes translate to my corporate audiences. So I really dissected it and filtered it so that they could understand the concept. The yes is about positive support. Yeah. It's about creating that appreciation, that respect. You know, when we talk about a great work culture, we talk about a great place to work, it has to be passionate and positive. And it's about giving appreciation to each other. And we forget to say thank you and I appreciate you, because what does that do? That fuels us. It fuels our passion, our energy, and that just leads completely to success.
I love it. I love it. I love it. There's so many opportunities for us here to think about yes, and. There are 4 myths which are constantly killing engagement. I'll just go through those quickly. One is work is serious and can't be fun. The second is time is money and fun waste both. The third is fun excludes people. The fourth is work just can't be fun. Joel told me the story about his first job was picking up trash at a movie theater. Yeah, not exactly fun, but work can be fun. And in fact, I try to have fun. I do have fun in my work every day. Let me tell you about a story when my nephew, who's now 23, but when he was 5 years old, Joe's his name. Yeah, he's my favorite nephew because Joey, you get it. All right. He ran around as a 5-year-old, a family gathering we were having. The only reason he ran around was to give everyone a high five. That's right. And it was a room full of people. big room, and he ran up to each person and was giving each people a high five. Well, pretty soon he went around the whole room, and he just stood there in the middle of the floor, because we were all enamored with this 5-year-old who's running around giving everybody a high five, right? And he just stood in the middle of the room because he ran out of people to give a high five to, until he realized, hey, I can give myself a high five. So he, in the middle of the room, said, "High five, Joe," gave himself a high five, and then went back to playing. I call it the high five Joe method. So what I want you to do, I want to encourage you to do, is to give yourself the appreciation that you're waiting for someone else to provide you. Appreciate yourself. What a great way of saying yes and to yourself. Give yourself a round of applause. Right? Do the hard thing. You got through the day, whatever, however you can express yourself, right? And high five yourself. Ann Grady was on the Work Positive Podcast, as I mentioned a minute ago. Her version of a high five is to take 5 minutes in a meeting and offer gratitude to each other. Let's listen to Ann describe the 5-minute gratitude meeting and its effect.
One of the best.
Okay. Ann was saying that
one of the best things you can do for your health that I did not realize, and I truly credit this with my face recovering when they said they didn't think it would, is a gratitude practice, because you don't even have to find anything to be grateful for. Just looking drops cortisol.
Cortisol is the brain hormone that stress releases, and stressors. And when we have a stress reaction, cortisol, it short circuits our memory, our decision-making abilities in the prefrontal cortex, places like that. So gratitude is a great antidote to stress. So it's like giving your team a high five and them giving each other a high five, right? I absolutely love it. So here's your engage, do one thing challenge. Ask yourself honestly, and this sounds a bit like one of our other challenges, how do I help the people around me be successful? How do I help the people around me be successful? Go give somebody a high five today, okay? Right? And that's a part of creating a mentally healthy culture. So let's go over the acronym THRIVE one more time, just to cement that in your brain. The T is for trust, the H for honor, the R for rest, the I for invest, the V for value, and the E for engage. Thrive's your framework. So here's the framework. Remember, you can take action on it. So I'm running out of time here, but what I want you to consider is, what about the Thrive framework are you doing well in your culture right now? What is it about the Thrive framework that you're doing well with right now? That's a great next best step. And conversely, what's the other side of that? Which part of the Thrive framework can your culture learn from and do better with? Okay. All right. So if you want to drop a question, we'll stay over and take your comments and your questions. So if you want to go ahead and drop those in the comments right now, that'll be a great exercise for us. I'll get to those. Also, if you'd like to email me following this, feel free to do that. Or I love messages on LinkedIn. That's probably a faster and better way to do it. But go ahead and drop your questions and comments in your comment box right there. As you do that, I want to tell you about this book that is another Amazon bestseller. And thank you to everyone who makes our books, our monthly books, these short books take about 90 minutes to read, bestsellers. We so appreciate you. Here's how you can get a free copy of Thrive at Work, Mental Health Culture, and the People You Lead. This is a framework to help you create that mentally healthy culture. First of all, it's free on Kindle today. Today is Wednesday, the 20th, and so it is free today. Just go to your Kindle account, go to Thrive, THRIVE at Work, put Dr. Joey in there if you want to get to it even quicker. So it comes up number one, and you'll see that the Kindle copy is available today. Now, if you're watching this post May 20th, then feel free just to go on. As I mentioned a moment ago, I love getting LinkedIn messages from you and helping you through LinkedIn messages. So just go to LinkedIn and send me a message and say, hey, Dr. J, how about that free digital copy of Thrive at Work? And we will make sure that you get a copy ASAP. Now, the second free gift I want to give you is when you go to our website at workpositive.today, that's workpositive.today, we have a free culture assessment there for you. And you see the web address there. So just jot that down quickly. You can go there and do your culture assessment. I've identified the Work Positive Culture Journey. Grow culture, grow people, grow profits is a 3-stage process. So you can get a copy of that. And then you can get your free assessment right there as well. So reach out to me through LinkedIn with your questions and comments. We're just so very grateful to have this opportunity. As I mentioned at the outset, I am particularly passionate about mental health, and for very personal reasons as well, from my own family experiences and the opportunity to lead people through the hard stuff in life. You've got this. You can do this. You can work positive today. Lean into the Thrive framework and create a mentally healthy culture. Thanks for celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month with me today. I'm always honored by your time, energy, and attention. Take care and enjoy your mentally healthy culture as you work positive